We move on to complex transferring skills. This is now looking for our 3 to 5 year old room, possibly even older if you have them in preschool or kindergarten that long. We've now moved on to 2 pots, tongs with little hands on, which take just a little bit more pressure to use, but a much smaller object to transfer, and far more of them. So now the child should understand the use of tools, they've used easier tools, and have the concentration to transfer more objects without spilling them. Remember in Montessori that in lots of the activities there are a control of error. So this is what I mean by control of error. If I drop this, I hear that I've dropped it on the tray, it sounds different. Okay, I can also see it rolling on the tray, which is why I am a huge fan of plain trays and not patterned ones. It's much easier to see that you've dropped something. And with these trays as well, because these balls are hard, you can hear that you've dropped something. So that alerts you to the fact that you need to make a correction. If I were presenting this to a child, I would probably present 1 or 2 of the little balls being transferred, and then I'd invite the child to carry on working. So if you're right-handed, you sit to the right of the child, because then they have a clear view of what you're doing. So you are my child for the purpose of this. You can see my movements. If I were to be working with my left hand doing this, I'm now blocking your view, which is what you would be doing with the child. So always sit to the right if you're right-handed, using your right hand to present. If you're left-handed, sit to the left of the child so that they can see what you're doing still. So this is one option for a complex transferring activity, and I'm quickly going to change these and show you another one that's even more complex. So this time I've got tweezers and I have tiny little ducks. So this is much more difficult to do. Okay, so this is a complex transferring with tweezers. You could also use tiny beads. So it's important now that we're checking what we're putting out. Check everything for the choke risk as well, especially if you're working with children that still put their things in their mouths. So just make sure that you've double checked that your tools are safe and not sharp anywhere, and that the objects you're putting out are not something they can choke on. As far as breakables go, I'm quite happy to have things in my classroom that if they drop them, they break, because then they'll learn to be more careful. And also as part of their practical life, they have learned to sweep up. So if something does break, they need to alert you, but then with a dustpan and brush, they can clear up. If it is little pieces of glass, then you do need to be more careful. I prefer china to glass because I find when it breaks, it doesn't splinter as much and the pieces are not so sharp. So personally, I use china and I take the risk that this will break. I do have some glass objects, but anybody who's worked with me will know I do the drop test. So I drop it from waist height in an empty classroom. If it breaks, obviously it wasn't suitable. And if it's a good sturdy glass, it will normally then bounce and be okay. So it all depends on your floor type, how hard it is, and the quality of the glass. But if you're not sure, I'm happier to stick to china.